Welcome. I'm going to walk you through something that you probably never heard before, but I assure you will completely change the way you look at selling a home. I'm going to share with you three strategic shifts that will skyrocket your home's sold price, which, by the way, these are strategies that buyers don't want you to know. This is a story about two homes that were very similar in the same neighborhood and listed at the exact same price. Yet, one sold under asking and the other sold for more. In this video, I'm going to show you why that happened and how it was possible. So, whether you're selling your home right now or sometime in the future, if you stick with me through this short video, you'll be ahead of the 99% of homeowners who are thinking about selling. You are going to learn strategies for selling your home at the highest possible price that most real estate agents have no idea about. These are strategies that work time and time again, even in the toughest market. What we found after analyzing thousands of homes is that a proactive strategy is the single best factor in determining your final sales price. This isn't about luck, it's about control. The traditional approach of putting the house on the MLS, running some ads, and hoping for the best is one of the fastest ways to leave thousands of dollars on the table. And this strategic approach produces real results. Nathan said, "We were doing it backwards. Once we changed how we were positioning the house and stopped guessing, buyers reacted completely different. We ended up getting an over asking offer." Robert shared, "Once we saw how buyers were actually comparing homes, it finally clicked why we weren't getting the right kind of interest before. After making those shifts, we had serious buyers and sold above our asking price." And Martha, whose home already expired, said, "For the first time, it felt like the buyers were competing instead of hesitating. We ended up selling over asking, which we honestly didn't think would happen after the first attempt." So, why in the world am I sharing these strategies with you before even deciding if working together makes sense? The goal is simple: to give you a real behind the scenes look at how a proactive, strategic approach to positioning can help homes sell for the price that sellers need or more. Is why so many other homes fail to reach their full potential. Now, I want to make this clear. This is purely educational. Rather than thinking of selling now or in years from now, you'll have the knowledge to make the informed decisions and choose the right professional to help you execute these strategies. And if you stick with me until the end of this video, I have a special gift for you. So let's start with something simple, and then we'll build into a more advanced concepts. As we know, the driver of home prices is supply and demand. And this part is very simple. When supply is low and demand is high, prices go up. When supply is high and demand is low, prices come down. This is a fundamental driver behind every sale. Now, the real question is, how do we create a situation where your home has more demand than supply, regardless of what's happening in the market? Which brings me to strategic shift number one: price bracketing. I want to introduce to you Brian and Lisa. They are buyers approved to purchase a home up to $850,000. When Brian and Lisa search for homes, they go to their favorite real estate website and search in whole numbers. For example, Buyers approved up to 850,000 typically search between 750 and 850,000. This is very common. In fact, it's probably how you search for your home. However, what buyers usually don't do is search in odd numbers. They don't choose random price ranges, and most real estate portals don't even allow it. Why? Because it's just not logical. But here's a mistake most agents and homeowners make when selling a home. They list a property with the famous 99999 at the end. In Jill's case, for example, let's say her home listed at 749,999. You see this all the time. This is a massive mistake. And here's why. Jill is looking for a $750,000 buyer. But just as we talked about, buyers search in whole numbers. So if buyers are searching between 750,000 and 850,000, a home price at 749,999 doesn't even appear in their search. In other words, those buyers don't even know the home exists. Not because a home isn't good, but because the agent and the homeowner didn't know how buyers actually search. So, what in the world should Jill do? The solution is simple. List the home directly on a price bracket. If Jill changes the price from 749,999 to 750,000, here's what happens. By changing the price by just $1, Jill instantly doubles the amount of buyer exposure. Her home now appears in both the $700,000 to the $750,000 search and the $750,000 to the $800,000 search. She becomes the best quality home in the lower bracket and the best value in the higher bracket. And we know what happens when demand increases and supply stays the same. The value goes up. So, now that we understand price bracketing, the next mistake agents and sellers make is failing to properly position the home in the marketplace. This brings us to strategic shift number 2, positioning. Let's look at a simple example. Suppose a home is valued at $730,000. The first step is to run an active demand analysis. That means identifying where buyers are actively shopping right now. If the home is worth around $735,000, buyers are likely searching between $700,000 and $800,000. So we would analyze the showing activity across that entire range. Now, after using market data, we identify how many showings occurred between $700,000 and $800,000. That tells us whether buyer demand exists. Then we break that range into smaller $25,000 brackets, which mirrors how buyers search online. In this example, we find that the $750,000 to $775,000 range has the highest demand, accounting for about 39% of buyers. The next highest demand comes from the $725,000 to $750,000 range. So what does this tell us? That's what we're about to break down now. So if that's what demand looks like, the next thing we have to look at is supply. What we're trying to figure out is where we should position the property so it becomes the obvious choice. When we looked at showing activity, we saw that the $750,000 to $775,000 range had the highest demand. The next question then becomes, where is the lowest supply? If we look at the overall price range between $700,000 and $800,000, we can see the total number of homes for sale. But when we break that down into smaller brackets, something interesting shows up. The $750,000 to $775,000 range not only has the highest demand, it also has the lowest number of active homes. In other words, the same price bracket with the most buyer activity also has the least competition. So, based on the demand and supply analysis, here's a positioning decision. Even though the home is valued at $735,000, we're going to list it at $750,000. Now, why would we do that? Well, this goes back to the price bracketing from strategic shift number 1. By listing it at exactly $750,000, we position the home at the bridge between the two buyer pools. We capture buyers searching from $725,000 to $750,000 and buyers searching from $750,000 to $775,000. Combined, that represents about 64% of all active buyers in the market. And here's the key part. The $750,000 to $775,000 bracket has the highest demand, 39% of all buyers, but the lowest supply with only 3 competing homes. On top of that, the $725,000 to $750,000 bracket accounts for another 25% of buyer demand. So strategically pricing the home at $750,000 instead of $735,000 or $749,999, we maximize exposure, minimize competition, and create the ideal conditions for multiple offers. This is the exact type of analysis that should be done on every property before it ever hits the market. Now, the next step is figuring out how we make sure your home stands out in that specific price bracket and becomes what we call the obvious choice. This is when buyers are drawn to your home instead of the others, creating urgency so they feel the need to see it right away and to make an offer before it's gone. In the third strategic shift, we're going to talk about how to outsmart the competition. So, first, we have to understand how buyers actually make decisions when they write an offer. And not just any offer, but the highest and most likely offer that you would accept. That comes down to how we strategically position a property in the market. And the first factor we have to look at is time. Here's a quick breakdown of how this works. We know that homes that sell faster tend to net more money. And the opposite is true. Homes that sit on the market for a longer period of time, on average, end up selling for less. For example, if a home lists at $750,000 and it sells on the first day, it will often sell for over the asking price. A home that sells in 30 days will usually sell for less, and in many cases may not even get the asking price. Now, if you put yourself in the buyer's shoes, this makes sense. Imagine walking into a home on the very first day it hits the market. You fall in love with it and decide that you want that home. What kind of offer would you need to write for the seller to accept an offer on day 1? It would probably have to be extremely strong. Now, look at the opposite scenario. If the average home in the market sells in about 14 days, but you walk into a property that's been on the market for 2 or maybe 3 months, and you want that home, how might your offer look then? You likely feel like you have more negotiation power. That's only natural, but it's true. And that's why the goal is to be the seller where the buyers are competing for your home, not the seller competing for a buyer. So let's talk about how we actually make that happen. What we're looking at here is how buyers actually compare homes. When a buyer is looking at your home versus a competing home, she's making a mental calculation. This matrix shows the likelihood that she'll write an offer on your home based on how the two compare. For example, if your home has more features and is priced higher than the competition, the chances of you getting an offer is low. This is typically what you see in today's market. However, if your home has more features and is priced more competitively than the competition, you have a very high chance of getting an offer, also known as you become the obvious choice. Now, if we flip the script and let's say your home has less features than the competition and you price it higher or even the same, the chance of an offer basically just disappears. Buyers will simply just choose the other house because you helped it stand out and they became the obvious choice. This is psychology behind how buyers make decisions. What we're going to do next is show you this in action so you can see how it works. So let's look at real active competition analysis. Let's pretend there are three active properties that you might compete with in that $725,000 to $775,000 sweet spot. Let's look at this first competing home on 123 Bird Street. It's priced at $775,000 and has been on the market for 67 days, in a market where homes are selling in about 14 days on average. Right away, that tells us this home has been sitting nearly 5 times longer than most other properties. Now, let's pretend this home has more features and benefits than yours, and that's something we both agree on. We went and saw it. We walked through it together, and we both said, yes, this home clearly offers more than ours does. Because of that, it wouldn't make sense for us to enter the market at a higher price if a home with more features is already listed at $775,000. But here's the key point: this home has been sitting for 67 days. The market has already told us something important. Buyers are saying even at that price, it's too high. So we can't compete at 775,000. If we want buyers to choose your home, we need to be priced much more competitively. Now let's look at the next active listing, 321 Act Avenue. It's priced at $750,000 and just hit the market. It's only been on for 2 days, so it's fresh and positioned well. The home, however, has fewer features and benefits than yours. Because of that, could we justify a higher price? Absolutely. Could we justify the same price? Absolutely. And if we're priced the same while offering more features and benefits, that's where we really stand out. We immediately become the obvious choice. This is how you attract multiple buyers to the same property, which is what ultimately drives the price up. Now, lastly, let's look at the house on 567 Liz Lane. It's priced at $765,000 and has been on the market for 45 days, which is more than 3 times the market average. This home has essentially the same features and benefits as yours. And when a home with similar features sits for 45 days, the market is telling us something very clearly. Buyers feel that the price is too high. Here's the critical insight. If we price your house at $765,000, the same way they did, we'll likely sit on the market just like they are and risk becoming stale. To win those buyers, we need to be priced more competitively so your home is seen as the better value and become the obvious choice. The winning strategy becomes clear. We offer better value than Bird Street, more features than Act Avenue, and a fresher opportunity than Liz Lane. By positioning your home intelligently against the competition, we make the most logical choice for serious buyers. Here's the end result. Let's go back to Jill, the homeowner. Her home had a market value of $735,000. After walking through all three strategic shifts we just talked about, she positioned her home in the market at $750,000. Because of that strategy, within the first 3 days on the market, she had 13 showings and received 3 offers. And here's what we know to be true. When multiple buyers are competing for one home, supply and demand take over. There's only one home, and now 3 different families want it. When demand exceeds supply, the price goes up. Now, Brian and Lisa were one of those buyers. They were approved up to $850,000. They ultimately wrote the offer that won the home based on the features, the benefits, the pricing strategy, and how the home was positioned in the market. They purchased the home for $767,000. Jill is happy, Brian and Lisa are happy, and this is a result of applying all 3 strategies step by step the right way. Do you remember at the beginning when I mentioned 2 identical homes in the same neighborhood that ended up with completely different results? Now you can see exactly why that happened. Let's recap what we learned. First, we talked about how buyers actually search for homes and how you instantly double the amount of buyer exposure your home gets. That's how we attract more buyers, which creates competition for your property. Second, we talked about positioning, where to place your home in the market so that regardless of market conditions or interest rates, you consistently have more buyer demand than the competition. That's what ultimately drives the price of your home up. And lastly, we talked about outsmarting the competition. This is how we make your home stand out as the obvious choice to buyers. So multiple buyers begin competing with one another for your home. The result is higher sales price, better terms for you, and pulling buyers away from competing listings, which is actually pretty fun to do. What's next? Well, as promised, since you made it this far, I have something special for you. Regardless if you're ready to sell your home now or sometime in the future, I like to provide you with what we call a strategic positioning analysis. This analysis will show you a few important things. First, it will outline a detailed pricing strategy designed to maximize the sales price of your home. Second, it includes a custom supply and demand audit. I'll analyze the entire marketplace and show you exactly where buyer demand and competition line up for your price range. Third, we'll go through an active competition analysis. We'll look at the homes you would be competing with right now and identify what needs to happen for your home to stand out as the better option. And lastly, you'll receive a net profit breakdown. I'll walk you through all the numbers so as you plan your move, you'll have a clear picture of how much money you'll walk away with after the sale. And here's the best part. There's no sales pitch or pressure. You can use this information now or keep it in your back pocket for when the timing makes sense for you. The choice is completely yours. The next step is really simple. If you would like your own strategic positioning analysis, simply just let me know. There's no cost, no obligation, just valuable insight that can put thousands or more dollars in your pocket. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to helping you sell smarter.